Thayer, former supervisor of 10 employees who maintained and essentially kept the utilities of Capitol Hill running so they could pass all these nice surpluses and stimuluses and all that good stuff. I'm the supervisor for 10 men. You know, some of us worked in the steam tunnels for well over 20 years. They're 100-year-old tunnels. They're dusty. They're hot. And the environment is laden with miles and miles of asbestos throughout them. I'm glad to be back here this year, you know, with the ADAO and my buddy Linda, wherever she went. She tries to keep me under control. You know, the people who have given myself and my former employees the care and the common courtesies that human beings should be entitled to, unlike, you know, some of the people up on the hill. Before I begin, shocking to some of us, but, you know, not to me or probably people in here, the exposure continues. As was said earlier, you know, the whole story about the Smithsonian and the 27-year-old employee, it's the same thing as what I went through. The museum defends itself. The safety person is now retired. Says it's not his responsibility to tell anybody about, you know, problems. The difference between me and them is it was well documented, well over, well, right now it's 13 years, well documented by them about the conditions of the tunnels because they were reported by me to them, asking for multi-million dollars to fix the tunnel systems because I watched my guys get sick year after year. That money was denied. As long as the steam and air conditioning systems were operable, you know, 100-year-old underground utility tunnels that nobody ever sees, you know, they wouldn't put the money into it. But let me explain something about the tunnels. They're a tough place to work. Temperatures, they got up to, well up to 160 degrees. Big slabs of concrete fall from the ceilings, and the cramped passages are thick with welding fumes, pulverized asbestos, and concrete dust. The Capitol Police, which is the security up on Capitol Hill, refused to patrol the tunnels well after 9/11 out of concern for the safety of their dogs. The fire department will not attempt an emergency rescue in the tunnels because there is no communication systems and the access is extremely limited, and due to security reasons, they can't lay out the map and foundation to a bunch of civilian firemen. To make a long story short, all the tunnels were locked from the outside. When my guys did their job, there was no way for them to get out except to walk from one end of the tunnel to the other because of security. You know, Congress has not shown the 10 men who worked in the difficult situations, you know, in life-threatening atmospheres that they knew about 10 years ago. Like I said, I documented it. And even after being physically cited by the Office of Compliance, which is who oversees the federal government on their safety policies. As a supervisor, I repeatedly tried to work and get upper management to fix the conditions to no avail. The result is 9 out of 10 of us are left with uncertain futures, as well as recently a couple of the workers' spouses being diagnosed with scarring of the lungs. You know, these women were non-smoking housewives. You know, one of my employees is extremely ill from exposure. You know, is hanging on the best that he can, he's doing pretty good. You know, he's that type of person. You know, he makes it with the best, you know, of his ability. Otherwise, I've been diagnosed with severe life-threatening illnesses, including my wife here. A majority of the crew have to take each day at a time, you know, with illnesses caused from asbestos exposure. I can't really give you an exact amount, but I would say that I spend between $5,000 and $10,000 a year, you know, on medicines, doctors, and, you know, flying to Detroit and seeing, you know, Doc Orbit. I've testified, and my colleagues have testified in countless congressional hearings, as well as other member meetings. Excuse me. Some senators and representatives have even shed tears at our story, promised to hold people responsible, but we're still waiting for jobs, medical insurance, and money to take care of our families. Presently, we have been dropped from their priority list and are still waiting to have our requests heard. As a result of bringing this forward, we were able to secure a small settlement for retaliation and harassment, which was filed in order for us to keep our jobs, but that didn't work out. But we were refused, and we were not allowed to mention the words personal injury, compensation, or even health. It only had to do with harassment and retaliation. To make a long story short on that, we were taxed over 45%, paid our attorneys 33%. They only allowed us to keep a 20% settlement to live on the rest of our lives. Two of the men that I have working for me were left with no health insurance and have been using the temporary COBRA insurance that was only good for 18 months and very expensive to afford. It makes it kind of hard to afford it when you don't have a job. Anyways, the COBRA has run its course for one of them, so now he has none at all. The other was fortunately able to find a job 18 months later. The Office of the Architect of the Capitol knew the severity of the asbestos problem. They just choose not to make that part of their lives. It is too inconvenient and interferes with their own comfort zone. As we sit around waiting to see what the future holds, billions and billions of dollars are being thrown around with not one single dime for insurance or compensation for us. These are the same employees who sacrifice their health and families to make their lives more comfortable, you know, and they promise us that we will be taken care of. If the AOC could live the lives of some of these people and the families that are affected by asbestos, this is, you know, everybody here, just for 1 week, maybe they would open their eyes. Congress needs to understand that there are people with no health insurance, sick, honest, hard-working families that need attention, and the epidemic of asbestos is going to become worse before, whether they like it or not. You know, I know, and I thank Linda up because the ADAO has been our only source of contact after we lost our jobs. You know, and trying to get us media attention to keep this going. Understand that we're not able to file a lawsuit. We're not able to, you know, I have stacks of documentation. Our first sample, after I brought this into the forefront of air samples as to why we weren't wearing respirators, was well over 40% on the air monitors, and was documented to be chrysotile. That's what we breathe without respirators. So yeah, it's a reality. Fortunately, Linda tries to, we keep on going to talk to people and trying to keep that door open. They've even said at a Senate hearing that the act that they committed was criminal. Somebody should be held criminally and responsible, but that's as far as it went. But we'll keep on pushing. You know, we're going to keep on knocking on doors and try to do, because, you know, if 10 of the staff, of their direct staff, cannot be supported, you know, I don't expect them to have any difference for every, you know, attitude towards the problem of asbestos in society. You know, the plain fact of the matter is, they ought to be ashamed of themselves.